Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this 2-week theme of wild shifts, looking at a band's typical sound and then something pretty atypical for them. Today we're going to be looking at a band called The Number 12 Looks Like You. We're looking at the track Jesus and Tori, and I'm pretty sure I know what their typical sound is, so we are in for 3 minutes of wild, chaotic music. Let's get into it. There's a lot of dual layering going on here between the two guitars and the two vocals as far as the melodic layer goes. Wildly shifting time feels. It's interesting, this is the second time something post-hardcore kind of came in. Really solid snare rolls back there. Really interesting direction to take this track too. Yeah, that's what I expected from them, give or take. It's This is like the third or fourth time we've had them on the channel. I think only one time we've had something that's a bit different from this. And I don't remember what that was. I just remember being surprised by it. This is post-hardcore, mathcore with a little bit of uh, death metal, maybe? I don't know. It's really a couple riffs that kind of reminded me of that, but not really a strong component to the track. To me, the really strong aspect here is the chaos and the dual lines. And we're going to start with the chaos because I think it's the most prevalent aspect of the track. You don't ever really know what you're getting into around the corner. We just kind of take the turn and deal with it as we get there. We could move into wild. Actually, speaking of wild shifts, there's a lot within the song itself. There was that moment about a minute and a half in where we were shifting. I had mentioned in the reaction it was some metric changes, time feel. And so we'll have this really fast moment, everybody's driving, and then we'll slow it down, but it isn't halftime. We haven't gone exactly half speed, which has a very specific feel to it. Much like octaves are doubling or halving of wavelength frequency. Someone might need to fact check me on that one. Um, but it's a doubling and halving of a specific component of the sound wave so that they fit well together. There's also something about double time and half time that tend to feel very close to where we were at already. Um, since we're using specifically doubling and halving of it. And we didn't do that. We shifted down to something that was slower, but not specifically halftime. And what it does is it creates a dragging sensation rather than just feeling like a new time feel for the track. It completely changes the flow of the song in a way that halftime and double time doesn't. And so we shift down into this, and it's like, oh, geez, now we're dragging. And then we, like, a bar later, we get back to the fast rushing stuff, and we have like 2 bars of this because it's faster. And then we cut back down to the slower one, but I think it's actually slower than the first time around. But again, still not halftime. And so we have another dragging sensation, but this one feels more so than last time. And so when we move back up to where we were, it feels even faster because the distance is larger this time as far as the tempo is concerned. And I mean, what? It's so difficult to keep up with this song and what they're doing, unless it's one of their longer sections. But even within them, there's so much chaos between the rhythmic ideas and the sonic ideas and what they're doing with the guitars. Are they riffing? Are they making noise? Because that's another thing, right? They're very mathcore, which means that while they do have riff specific areas, they also have sections of the song that are based around texture and sound more so than what notes are being picked specifically. It's more about the relationship between the notes. And so we come across with some sections that are just heavily dissonant or that jump between low and high notes or are layered in a way that is, not harmonic in any way. It's just a wild ride from start to finish, and that's the best way. It's controlled chaos. I'm sure after a few listens, it makes perfect sense. You can, recite it in your head, you can sing along with it, or, anticipate whatever's coming next. But on a first listen, there's just no rules, there's no roadmap. It's driving blind. I never know what's up ahead. I can't plan for it. The music isn't leading into anything naturally where they decide to go. There's no, um, anticipating ideas that might foreshadow what they're going to do. There's no follow through. There's no revisiting of ideas. It's just pure entropy. Seemingly, of course, they have a plan. They've written the music, they've practiced it, they're performing it the same way every time. It's definitely planned, but on a first time listen, there's just no way to anticipate anything, and so it feels very chaotic. Now, one of the other ways that they create this chaos is through duality. If I remember correctly, this is the band with two vocalists. Two vocalists that sound very similar, which is why I'm a little hesitant to fully lean into that. But I think there's two vocalists. If not, there's at least two vocal lines consistently throughout this. And there's always some sort of perceived pitch difference. Because a lot of this is harsh vocal. And so even when they're both doing higher fry screams, there's one like shrieking, and then there's another that's more typical, still a bit higher range, still a bit pitchy if you're more accustomed to lower range harshes. But yeah, there's that, and then there's growls in here. There's mid-range fries. There's just so many different perceived pitches in these harshes, which I'm really enjoyed. Some of the screechier stuff I don't have an ear for. I'm going to just chalk that up to being an acquired taste, but the variety of harshes definitely worked for me more so than if they had just picked a pitch and stayed on it. But it also made it, again, really difficult to follow through. I think most of the time they were singing the same thing, although sometimes it was hocketed, where one person would sing two syllables, and then you'll get a third syllable down here in a low growl, and then the next syllable will be this high shriek up here. Really difficult to follow along, but really neat that they're utilizing their two vocals not just for harmony, which they do in frequent places, and for counterpoint, which they do a really interesting take on counterpoint. If we'll touch on that later, but also hocketing, which is just something we don't see too often in the music that we check out on the channel in general, but certainly not so in vocal. Usually, if there's two vocalists, they're harmonizing. So the hocket was really nice. Now I mentioned that they have a really interesting counterpoint in that I think, and I could be way off here, but they didn't have two sets of lyrics on here. And the couple of times that I paid attention to this, which I think was only one section where this was present, I think they were singing the same thing with completely different rhythms and completely different pitches with completely different melodies. And since they're both in the lead spotlight, that means they're doing counterpoint, but they're doing counterpoint with the same set of lyrics, which I think is fascinating. You know, again, 99% of the time, if you tell two vocalists that they're going to sing the same thing, they're going to harmonize with each other. That is just the status quo for multiple vocalists singing the same words. And for them to say, you know, you're going to have completely different things here. You're going to do vocal counterpoint, but sing the same line. Uh, how do you get to that point? um, I'm sure I've heard it before, but it's not something that stuck with me, I guess. I want to do it now. I want to put that in my own music because that's just. But see, I think it works really well here, specifically with the different styles of harshes because they're really difficult to follow along linguistically. I didn't really hear strong syllabic phrasing without the lyrics there and just really focusing in and having the words present for me to okay, they're gonna say the next. Let me try to hear that in some of the vocal lines. Without the lyrics, I would have been completely lost here, and I think not being able to hear the words helps this idea because then it's just pure counterpoint. So I think that really helps it because otherwise, if they were singing cleanly, it could get a bit muddy because not only are you hearing the two separate musical lines, but your brain is trying to focus on two people in two different, presumably, ranges of speech, singing the same words, but opposite of each other. Sometimes getting uh, a reverb or an echo effect. Other times, this line just goes three words ahead, and this one's still, trudging behind. And it's really difficult to listen to two people have a conversation at the same time. I imagine that with clean vocals and your brain trying to parse both sets of words but being the same really could jumble things up. So I think the harshes actually help in this situation. It's phenomenal. But we also have the same thing in the guitars about, completely different lines, completely different tones, completely different ideas. Sometimes they're harmonizing, sometimes they're doing counterpoint, sometimes it is just like heavy riffage over here, just foundational stuff, and then melody over here. And that's going on while we're getting all this duality in the vocals too. So there's a lot of moving parts in this track, even in the lead range. Um, it's kind of fascinating that it doesn't fall apart given just how many moving parts there are. One wrong move and one gear gets out of place and the whole machine breaks. It's teetering on the edge and it finds a way to keep balance and stay put. It's fascinating. But then, more interestingly, I think we wrap this up with a bit of a post-hardcore ending that leads into a metal guitar solo. I don't quite know what to make of it, but honestly, with how chaotic everything else is, I just accepted it. I don't think the song's supposed to make much sense in like a linear fashion. It's just a series of ideas, and you got to be on board for it. And there's no point in trying to dig deeper past that because I don't think there is anything deeper past that. The guitarist was like, "Hey, I found this riff," and the other guitarist like, "Hey, I made this riff up," and like, "All right, let's put them all together in a song. I'll do mine, you do yours, I'll do my second one." It's how the song's gonna go. No idea of, no concept of cohesion for it. It's just a series of cool things, and the rule of cool is very dominant in metal, and I think I've just got to get on board with that. There's this whole side of metal that I just find very perplexing. And, mathcore is included in it because there's just no cohesion in the music. It's just smash cuts of cool riffs. Just one of those things I think I gotta get used to. I'm gonna hit some lyrics, see if they make any sense. We're gonna wrap this up. Even the lyrics themselves are disjointed. There's words missing that tie lines together. The song is about sacrifice and possibly martyrdom. So we have, the song's called Jesus and Tori, talking about sacrifice. The idea of being nailed to a cross comes up in here. But at one point, even says, what is it? Oh! See, now I'm curious. I have two different sets of lyrics. One, the lines seem more incomplete, such as the line, "As I'm nailed your cross," without two. But the other one does have the two in it, so I'm curious which one's right. Well, see, according to Genius, these things are a lot more cohesive. They feel at least like full sentences. Anyways, the idea though is that this person is ready to be sacrificed, regardless of the conditions that the sacrifice is being done within. It says that the soiled ground for this sacrifice, it's dispelled a crippling, faulty holy land. Not a lot of great things going on here, but he says, "I'm your martyr, I'm your stigmata." So let's do it. And then we have a depiction of the nailing to the cross. Says that the splinters from it etch hearts into my back. So this may be some sort of, being a sacrifice for love kind of idea. But then after that, he says, "I denounce this crucifixion and demand another sacrifice." He says, "I pull my fingers from these nails, and there's no use for a second coming." I don't quite know the purpose here, unless that's to say that the sacrifice isn't good enough or is too symbolic. Because it doesn't necessarily say I denounce this sacrifice, as I denounce this crucifixion, as if to say that this means something it shouldn't. I'd like to be sacrificed a different way. I don't know. It's relatively short. There's a whole 10 lines here, and I said most of them actually in this little analysis. Like I said, there's themes of sacrifice and martyrdom throughout here, but I don't quite understand the ending. It probably makes more sense with context, whether that's the rest of the album or maybe an interview speaking about what the lyricist was aiming for, what it means to them personally. Maybe it relates to something in their life. I don't know. I'm a bit lost on it. Those are my thoughts on the number 12 Looks Like You, Jesus and Tori. Let me know what y'all thought of this one. Put your thoughts, perspectives, opinions down in the comments section. Above the comment section in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this menu. You can find links to my music, links to the Discord server, ways to support the channel, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We got a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. We'll continue on with this theme, looking at a non-typical sound for the number 12 Looks Like You. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.